The fluorescent lights of the grocery store flickered overhead as Emma's hands moved frantically through the air, her fingers forming desperate shapes that most people couldn't understand. But Michael Chen saw them clearly, every urgent gesture, every fearful glance over her shoulder, every silent plea for help. The 12-year-old deaf girl was trying to tell him something, and what she signed made his blood run cold. "He won't stop following me." Michael had been a single father for 3 years, ever since his wife Sarah passed away from cancer. In that time, he'd learned to read people differently, to notice the small things, the way his own daughter, Lucy, would tap her fingers when she was anxious, the slight tremor in someone's voice when they were afraid. Maybe that's why he immediately understood that this wasn't a child's overactive imagination. This was real terror in a young girl's eyes. The man Emma was pointing to stood near the produce section, pretending to examine avocados while keeping his eyes fixed on the girl. He was middle-aged, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his forehead, and there was something deliberately casual about the way he moved that made Michael's protective instincts flare to life. Emma had been shopping alone, clutching a short grocery list and a small purse, probably, sent on a quick errand by her parents who didn't realize the danger their daughter was in. Michael didn't hesitate. Years of corporate meetings had taught him to think quickly, but fatherhood had taught him to act with his heart. He immediately knelt down to Emma's level, pulled out his phone, and opened a translation app that converted text to sign language. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm going to help you. Stay close to me. What's your mom's phone number?" Emma's relief was palpable. Her small hands shook as she typed the number into Michael's phone, tears streaming down her cheeks. She'd been alone in her silent world, unable to call out for help, unable to make anyone understand the danger she was in. But now someone saw her. Someone understood. Michael quickly texted the number Emma provided. "This is Michael Chen. I'm with your daughter, Emma, at Green's Grocery on Market Street. She's safe with me, but someone has been following her. Call me immediately." Within seconds, his phone rang. The woman on the other end of the line was Emma's mother, Patricia, and her voice cracked with panic and gratitude. Oh my God, I just sent her to get milk. We live 2 blocks away. I'm coming right now. Please don't let her out of your sight." "I won't," Michael promised, his eyes never leaving the man who was now moving closer, abandoning any pretense of shopping. "But I need you to call the police too. Tell them what's happening." Michael stood up, placed himself between Emma and her stalker, and did something that would later be described by witnesses as both ordinary and extraordinary. He began to shop. He took Emma's hand gently, grabbed a shopping cart, and started moving through the aisles as if they were father and daughter on a routine grocery run. But his real purpose was clear. He was running interference, using his body and presence as a shield. The man following Emma grew visibly frustrated. He tried to approach several times, but Michael was always there, deliberately blocking his path, engaging Emma in animated conversation through his phone app, making it clear that she wasn't alone anymore. Other shoppers began to notice the strange dance happening in the aisles. A tall Asian man in a business suit protecting a young Hispanic girl who communicated only through hand gestures, while a suspicious figure lurked nearby. That's when something remarkable happened. One by one, other customers began to understand what was occurring. An elderly woman named Margaret stepped into the aisle, positioning her cart as an additional barrier. A young college student named Tyler, who had taken an ASL class, began signing to Emma, asking if she was okay. A stocky construction worker named Ray moved to stand near Michael, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the would-be predator. The stalker realized he'd lost. Where there had been one vulnerable child, there was now a wall of humanity, strangers, who had decided that protecting Emma mattered more than their busy schedules or personal convenience. They didn't know her name, her story, or her family. They just knew that a child needed help, and they answered that call without hesitation. When the police arrived 6 minutes later, 6 minutes that felt like hours, they found Emma surrounded by a protective circle of 7 people, with Michael Chen at the center. The man who had been following her tried to leave, but Ray blocked the exit while Margaret loudly pointed him out to the officers. "That's him! That's the creep who was stalking this poor child." The investigation that followed revealed something chilling. The man, later identified as Dennis Hartwell, had a prior conviction for child endangerment in another state and was on probation. He had been watching Emma for weeks, had learned her routine, and had chosen this particular day when he saw her leave her house alone. His car, parked outside, contained rope, duct tape, and children's clothing. Detective Sarah Morrison, who took the case, would later tell reporters, "There's no doubt in my mind what his intentions were. If Michael Chen hadn't intervened, if those other customers hadn't stood up, we'd be dealing with a very different outcome today." Patricia arrived at the store just as the police were taking Hartwell away in handcuffs. She ran through the automatic doors and dropped to her knees, pulling Emma into her arms and sobbing. Emma's father, Roberto, arrived moments later, having sprinted from his construction site when he got the news. The family held each other in the middle of the grocery store, while strangers wiped away their own tears. But Patricia needed to thank the man who had saved her daughter. She stood up, her face wet with tears, and approached Michael. "You didn't have to stop," she said, her voice breaking. "Most people would have just walked away, would have assumed someone else would help. You stayed. You protected her like she was your own." Michael's own eyes were glistening. "I have a daughter," he said simply. "Lucy is 10. She has autism and communicates differently than other kids. I know what it's like to worry about her being vulnerable in a world that doesn't always understand. When I saw Emma signing, when I saw her fear," his voice caught. "I just did what I hoped someone would do for Lucy if she ever needed help." What Michael didn't expect was what happened next. The story of his intervention spread through the community like wildfire. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. But it wasn't just about Michael. It became about all of them. Margaret, the elderly woman who had blocked the aisle with her cart, was interviewed on the evening news. "That could have been my granddaughter," she said firmly. "When I saw what was happening, there was no question about what to do. You protect children, always." Tyler, the college student, posted about the experience on social media, writing, "Today I used my ASL skills for something that actually mattered. A little girl was in danger, and I got to help her feel less alone, even for just a few minutes. This is why representation matters. This is why learning to communicate with everyone in our community matters." But the real impact came in the weeks that followed. The story sparked a movement in the community and eventually across the country. Parents of deaf and disabled children began sharing their fears and experiences. Schools started implementing buddy systems and safety protocols for vulnerable students. Grocery stores and shopping centers began training their employees to recognize signs of child endangerment and human trafficking. Michael and Patricia's families became close friends. Emma and Lucy bonded over their shared experiences of being different, of navigating a world not always designed for them. Emma taught Lucy some basic sign language, and Lucy helped Emma feel more confident in social situations. The two families had dinners together, celebrated birthdays, and supported each other through challenges. 6 months after the incident, the community organized an event called See Something, Say Something, Be Something, a program designed to teach people how to intervene safely when they witness potential harm to children. Michael was invited to speak, and he brought Emma with him. Through an interpreter, Emma shared her experience, her fear, and her gratitude. But more importantly, she shared a message that resonated with everyone in the room. "I couldn't use my voice that day, but Michael became my voice. We all need people who will be our voice when we can't speak." Michael's speech was simpler but equally powerful. "I've thought a lot about that day," he told the crowd of nearly 500 people. "I've been called a hero, but I'm not. I'm just a dad who saw a scared kid and did what felt right. The real heroes are the other people who stepped up. Margaret, Tyler, Ray, and the others who formed that protective circle without being asked. They're the ones who proved that we're not just isolated individuals going about our lives. We're a community, and in a community we protect each other." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. Since my wife died, I've sometimes felt like Lucy and I are alone in the world. But that day in the grocery store reminded me that we're never really alone. There are good people everywhere, waiting for the chance to show kindness, to protect the vulnerable, to be the difference between tragedy and hope. We just have to be brave enough to act when the moment comes. The story of Emma and Michael became more than just a news item. It became a testament to what's possible when people choose compassion over convenience, when they choose to see rather than look away. Dennis Hartwell was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and new legislation was proposed to strengthen monitoring of convicted offenders in the community. But perhaps the most beautiful outcome was entirely unexpected. Michael began learning sign language properly, not just relying on apps. He wanted to be able to communicate with Emma directly, without barriers. He also started volunteering with organizations that support deaf and hard of hearing children, using his experience to train other adults on how to be allies and protectors. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Emma's family, Michael and Lucy, and all the other people who had helped that day gathered at Green's Grocery. The store had installed a plaque near the entrance that read, "In this place, strangers became heroes. May we all have the courage to protect the vulnerable and the wisdom to see when help is needed." Emma stood in front of the gathered group and signed something that the interpreter translated with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me when I had no voice. You didn't just save my life that day. You taught me that I'm never truly alone, that there are people who care, who watch out for each other, who choose love over fear. You are my heroes, every single one of you." As the crowd applauded, Michael caught Emma's eye and signed back to her, slowly, deliberately, and with all the warmth of someone who had learned that the greatest gift we can give is simply to pay attention, to care, and to act when action is needed. He signed, "You are brave, you are strong, and you are never alone." In a world that often feels divided and disconnected, where people are encouraged to mind their own business and stay out of trouble, the story of Emma and Michael reminds us of a simple truth. We are our brother's keeper, our sister's protector, our neighbor's guardian. And sometimes being a hero is as simple as refusing to look away, refusing to assume someone else will help, and refusing to let a scared child face danger alone. That day in the grocery store, humanity won. And it won because ordinary people made an extraordinary choice, the choice to care.